be here. I'm always excited about being invited to present the CLARIN infrastructure, but this is a particularly relevant event also for me personally, because I have translation studies training background myself, and I'm working at the translation department at the University of Ljubljana. So I am particularly invested into getting more translation studies scholars and teachers of translation studies on board. And there's a big gap between what CLARIN can offer to all of us and what we're using or what we are familiar with. So I hope we can narrow this gap a little bit in this seminar. So basically that's my background. I'm now doing a lot of research that is not directly relevant to translation studies, but I always try and address issues in either a multilingual setting or a comparative setting. So even though I'm not doing my research right now that is directly translation kind of research, it's always a sort of cross-cultural, cross-lingual perspective that I adopt. For my PhD, I developed a lexical resource called WordNet for Slovenian with automatic methods. I mined parallel and comparable corpora to identify translation equivalents across languages, but also synonyms within a language to do this. Okay, now let's move on and focus on CLARIN. Before I start my presentation, I would like just a brief show of hands. Who here in the room is a teacher or a researcher in translation studies? Wonderful. Do we have any practitioners of translation? Anyone working in the translation industry? Okay. This talk is going to be more relevant for the researchers and teachers, but maybe you can be inspired how to be able to use the same resources and facilities that we offer in your daily work as a translator as well. Okay, who can confidently raise their hands when I ask who's from a CLARIN country? Okay. The rest of you are from exotic parts of the world, or do you not know what CLARIN is to be able to raise your hands? Okay, I hope that you are not very familiar with CLARIN, because I'm going to start with the very basics. Before we start talking about CLARIN, though, I want us all to take a step back and think about infrastructures in general, right? When we use the word infrastructure, we probably talk about roads and infrastructure like that, physical infrastructure that we use every day. But researchers need infrastructures too. And if it's not immediately apparent to all of us in this room today why we need this, I've prepared a short teaser video. The video motivates researchers to share, you do your PhD and you start by collecting a corpus where you can test your research questions, right? You spend 75 to 90% of your time and energy and efforts on collecting the resource, and then it gets very late, and then you rush through the analysis, and then you finish writing up your thesis, you defend, you get tired, and after you've defended your thesis successfully, your resource, your corpus, your collection, however you call it, somehow starts gathering dust in your desk or on your laptop. Sounds familiar? Yeah. So a new excited junior PhD colleague comes along, and what do? They start collecting their own corpus, spend 90% of their time, energy and effort doing the same job as you did, probably as answering similar research questions, right? And there's never any multiplication effect. Can you imagine if we all contributed to the same basket with all our resources, then I could skip this collection phase and start by answering more challenging, more advanced researchers. And then my next colleague could do more even on top of that. We could also be cross-checking our results or comparing our results more successfully. So we would be able to prove if we've made some advancement in our research area. And that's only possible when we all agree that this is a good thing to do, and when we all go to the same environment where we drop our resources or can use the resources deposited there. And this is the whole purpose of the research infrastructure, such as CLARIN. CLARIN is not the only research infrastructure relevant for our research domain. Another very closely related research infrastructure is called DARIA. I'm employed not by Daria but by CLARIN, so maybe I should change my name to Clara or something. But for the time being, the difference between the two is that the CLARIN research infrastructure really focuses a lot on building the technical facilities, which looks like a fancy library of the third millennium, for example, right? It's not really much different. We are collecting all the resources out there and making it possible, if not even easy, for everyone in the network to be able to use them, reuse them, benefit from them, but also add their own. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what CLARIN does. And I will try and present what this looks like and how it works. So in the rest of my talk, I will basically just show you what CLARIN is, how it's built, what it looks like, how it works. Then I will present some of the most relevant CLARIN resources for your community. I will just briefly show you the tools, because CLARIN doesn't only build and make resources available, but also language processing tools. And then very, very briefly, if there's any time available, I will motivate and show you how easy it is to deposit your own resources with CLARIN. So let's start with a brief introduction to CLARIN. As a sort of mnemonic technique, there are 5 things that you should remember about CLARIN. CLARIN is not a name for a cosmetics company. It's an acronym for Common Language Resources and Technology Infrastructure. But this is quite a tongue twister, so we almost never use it and we just stick to CLARIN. What CLARIN does is it provides easy and sustainable access for researchers in the academia in the fields of humanities and social sciences. What is sustainable? Sustainable means that when your PhD is over, when your grant is over, when your project funding is over, your resource will still be maintained and made accessible. This is what CLARIN puts special emphasis on. We provide access and maintenance of digital language data in different forms. It can be written corpora, it can be corpora of spoken language, it can be video materials, it can be multimodal data. All of this is relevant for CLARIN. It has to be in digital form though. It has to be online, electronic. In addition to providing access to language data, we also provide access to advanced tools that help us discover, explore, exploit, annotate, analyze, and combine all these bits into a full chain wherever you are from, right? So you can be from one part of the world, a resource can be developed in another part of the world, and the tool that you want to use can be developed in the third part of the world. And you don't have to go to that library or to see that researcher to give you the resource, and then you take the resource to the next person who develops the tool to help you use the tool. You can all do this from your own office or hopefully a cozy armchair. What is also good about CLARIN is that there's not a complicated procedure how to get access to the resources and to the tools. What we do is we really take care of providing a simple solution so that you get to identify only once you log in with your own home institution, and then you get free access to tools and resources wherever they are, provided that they are under an open license, which allows them to be used. In terms of types of data and user communities that CLARIN is relevant for, we really do provide a lot of different kinds of collections. For example, newspaper archives, literary texts, parliamentary records, historical letters, broadcast interviews, oral history material, social media data, and so on. Through this, we are relevant to a very wide researcher community working in the domain of digital humanities, or more specifically in linguistics and philology, translation lexicography, literary studies, historians, political scientists, communication scientists or media studies, but also people dealing with culture studies, folklore, anthropology research, as well as speech therapies, teachers of languages, and also the so-called citizen scientists or the interested general public. In a single snapshot, this is what CLARIN offers, really. I will very briefly walk you through all the services that we provide, focusing later on in the rest of my talks on just a few of them, but I want to give you a quick show of the landscape. So we have a very rich CLARIN portal where you can read about CLARIN, the tools, the resources, how things work, and so on. We offer depositing services where you can archive, store your own data. We offer a window into all the resources that are already in the infrastructure through the Virtual Language Observatory. This is basically the main entry point to the world of CLARIN, and I will show this later on in more detail. We also provide access to protected sensitive resources. While we really do try to actively promote open science and open formats, we are aware of the fact that this is not always possible, either due to legacy constraints or some privacy information constraints, copyright issues, and so on. So we also take on protected resources. We offer a range of web services and applications that you can use to annotate or analyze your own data so that you don't have to install and configure any programs or tools, any software. So you just do it as an online service. We offer a facility to compile virtual collections of material, text material, or video or spoken material that you are particularly interested in. We have a language resource inventory that stores all the metadata about the content that we provide. We also enable a single starting position to query all the resources in our database through a single query from a single starting point. And we also offer consulting services, help desks, whenever you have some questions or need help. This is the CLARIN map. CLARIN is not a national infrastructure, it's an international infrastructure, and it currently consists of 19 members and 2 observer countries. As soon as a country pays membership fee for CLARIN, all their citizens become members. So we have many more members than just 19. 19 means there's 19 countries in the network. And we have over 40 centers, most of them located in Europe, but also overseas, like in the United States, for example. CLARIN centers are the foundation of the CLARIN infrastructure. CLARIN is organized into a network of nodes, nodes meaning centers, that are, all operate under the same conditions and all offer similar services. A single CLARIN center, like the one organizing this workshop, will offer many different things. First of all, most importantly, a CLARIN center will offer a repository where you can find resources that they already have, or where you can deposit your own new resource that you have developed. Next, they will offer a facility that will let you identify and sign on for all the services that are available through the CLARIN infrastructure. That's called Federated Single Sign-On Service. A CLARIN center will also make available and make sure that everything is consistent, all the metadata describing each resource or tool. Metadata is really, really important because it makes it possible that other people in the network are able to identify, track, understand, and use your resource or tool. In addition to that, a CLARIN center will make sure that once you deposit your resource, it will get a persistent identifier, which means that you will get a thing like a permanent URL that will never go away. So even if your project dies and you stop paying for the domain, the persistent identifier will forever be pointing to your resource. So other people can access it even after your project is over. They will take care of licensing for you. They will help you select the appropriate license for your resource and will respect it. They will not disseminate protected resources if you say it's not an open collection. And finally, they will guarantee long-term availability of your resource. They have a data seal of approval. They've gone through a process and they got a stamp. Yes, you are a reliable archive, and they will guarantee that they will be hosting your resource for at least, for example, 5 years. This is what CLARIN centers do. We have several types of centers, and I think for your particular needs, the most important family of centers are the K centers. K means knowledge. So these are the centers that focus on a particular area of expertise, and in addition to offering a repository, they also can share knowledge with you. So if you need help in a particular area of expertise and there's already a CLARIN center available, you can get in touch. They have someone there who can help you with your questions. And the K centers, they either focus on particular languages or language families. For example, we already have a K center for processing Polish language, a K center for Spanish, a K center for Danish and Swedish. Other K centers, they choose to focus on the types of resources that they're experts in. For example, on tree banking, there's a K center, or on sound archives, the Phonogram Archive. The third type of K centers are K centers that offer expertise on particular research areas. For example, there's an expert group in our network doing speech analysis. They're experts and they can also help you out with basic questions so that you don't have to repeat their mistakes and so on. There's a group on language learning analysis that you might be particularly interested in, but also a group on doing multimodal analysis. If you have come across a domain, a language, or a type of resources that doesn't have a K center and you think you and your team have expertise in this, you can apply to become a K center. So this is a list that is getting refreshed and developed every year. Okay, now let's move on to the second part of my talk. We are particularly strong and proud in the resources that we compile and make available to the researchers in the community. You can take a look at this link here, and you will be able to find out about the most important families of resources that we have surveyed. And that are available for most languages in our network, and that could be relevant also for researchers and teachers of translation studies. For most languages in the network, we have newspaper corpora. They can be very useful for teaching language, teaching translation, doing comparative analysis, and so on. Another very interesting type of data is the parliamentary corpora that also exist and are easily available for many of CLARIN countries. You can see an overview on the website above. Next, a new type of language, a new type of media is the social media. And social media corpora have now been very relevant in natural language processing teams, but also in translation studies or linguistic teams. For example, to analyze code switching. When do we switch from one language to another, for example? We have also done a survey on learner corpora, where it's important to agree on an annotation scheme. How do you annotate errors of learners of a language? Related corpora are translator learner corpora that we haven't surveyed yet, but this maybe could be done in this year. And I will be focusing in the rest of my talk on parallel corpora, because I think most of you can find this useful for your work. Parallel corpora, does anybody not know what parallel corpora are? Okay, so I'm assuming you know what parallel corpora are. They have great potential to be used and reused in many different fields beyond just translation studies. They can be used for qualitative types of analysis, where you read the whole document, for example, and read the translation and do qualitative analysis. They can be used in quantitative approaches, where you use text analytics, text mining tools to extract knowledge from the data. They can be used in the humanities fields, for translation studies, contrastive linguistics, comparative linguistics, but also in social sciences, where you try and compare the cultural and social dynamics between, on the same topics, for example, between two different cultures or nations, and so on. In NLP, they're very, very useful for training machine translation tools, for information extraction across languages, and so on. Parallel corpora are special because they are considered a particularly rich resource type, because apart from linguistic content, it is very rich in metadata and extra linguistic clues that make the resource even more valuable for researchers. But on the other hand, they are less easy to use because they are very often messy. They contain quite a lot of noise. It's not always easy to align the parallel segments. Not everything is directly parallel. Some sections can be left out in the translations, and so on. It's very useful to try and link the parallel resources with data in other modalities beyond text and speech. For example, images or concepts. And this is not achieved for most of the corpora in the network as well. Parallel corpora are also special, and we need to be aware of this before we embark on using them for research and interpret the results, because they are created in specific circumstances that need to be well understood. We, for example, sometimes don't know what is the status of a document. Is it a source language or a target language in the parallel corpus collection? And this is sometimes or many times not listed in the metadata of parallel corpora. So you need to either make sure to investigate and find out, or be very careful when making conclusions if you don't know the status of the language in the document pairs. How can you access parallel corpora in the CLARIN infrastructure? There are two entry points. Either you check out your national repository. For example, my Slovenian CLARIN repository looks like this. And you look for the parallel resources that are relevant for your national repository by focusing on, for example, the subject field. You type in parallel corpus and choose the one that you're interested in. For example, this is one, an English-Croatian parallel corpus of tourism material, or here is another one, post-edited and error-annotated machine translation corpus. You get a lot of information about the resource, as well as the license information, and a direct link where you can download the corpus. Another entry point is the already mentioned Virtual Language Observatory. This is the central level service. So you go to a page that aggregates all the information from all the national repositories, and you can find parallel corpora there. The benefit of using this resource is that you don't need to know which national repository to check out for a corpus. Because sometimes in a national repository that you would expect would host a resource, you won't find anything because it was deposited with some other center. In this way, you don't have to worry about which national center is relevant or hosting the resource. How to use this you will see in this seminar, so I will just skip this. And give you a brief overview of what, in terms of parallel corpora, we already have available in the infrastructure. When searching for parallel corpora, we have identified as many as 47 parallel corpora. This means that when your PhD students come with an idea, I want to build a corpus, you should say, well, shouldn't you check out first if this hasn't been developed yet? We cover most European languages, but also some other more exotic languages. Mostly the domains are quite narrow, limited to the EU materials, Wikipedia, web materials, newspaper data, and fiction. Why? On the one hand, because these are easy to obtain in large quantities. Two, because the licensing information is not very problematic for EU texts, Wikipedia, web materials. To a lesser extent, this is true for newspaper data and even less for fiction. The non-problematic fiction tends to be quite old, so certain investigations you can do with these old collections with expired copyrights, but the exciting new novels such as Harry Potter, they might be protected under copyright legislation and not available through our infrastructure. How big are these corpora? Well, they vary from very small collections like just 100,000 sentences, which is not a lot for quantitative investigations, to huge, like 1 billion tokens. The largest collection is the UK, the smallest one on Portuguese. In terms of availability, most are available for download, which is a good thing. And even a better thing is most are available under the open license CC BY. If you want to investigate in detail which are the corpora that we have identified in the CLARIN infrastructure, I provided a link. I think this would be too boring to go through together today. If you're interested in parallel corpora but are not satisfied with the results in the CLARIN infrastructure, you have some plan B options here. There's a meta-share catalog where you can find more parallel corpora. There's a language resource map that is maintained by the LREC conference. And there's corpora list, which maintains a very good archive of announcements where you can search the archives or ask on the mailing list if a particular corpus exists. Okay, to finish, with our services, I want to focus on the tools that we offer. I won't go into a lot of detail because the most important tools you will learn in the seminar that you are attending today and tomorrow. But I just want to give you like a brief executive summary or an overview of what we offer. I would like to show how we can search for resources. So when you want to identify a corpus, how you can search in resources without having to download, install, or learn anything new. Then I would like to show you how you can perform manual annotation of the data for your own research, or how you can perform automatic annotation of your data, as well as combine several of these stages. You have seen the screenshot already. This is how you search for resources. You go to the Virtual Language Observatory. You use either the simple search option, you pretend you're in a Google engine and just query the keywords you're interested in, or you can use advanced or faceted search, where you can select different types of information about the resources, and you can say, I'm interested in resources that contain English as a language. I'm interested in a corpus or in a parallel corpus, and so on. And then you get hits listed here, just like with the Google search engine. And then you can focus on one particular resource, read about the metadata, the licensing issues, and even download the resources. Another central service that we are very, very proud of is providing you a means to search in the resources. Sometimes you don't know if a resource is valuable for you, if you want to bother downloading it, annotating it, porting it into a concordancer, and so on. Sometimes you just want to see what is being mentioned where. For this, we have developed federated content search, which is an aggregator that allows you to search, to query all the corpora in the collection with a single query. So I tried typing here the word elephant. You can filter for languages or some other filters here. And then this works really fast and gives you results where the word elephant has been identified in which corpora. So when you see a lot of relevant hits, then you can proceed by focusing just on this particular corpus. This makes available for simple queries. You cannot do a lot of very, very complicated analysis here, but you can get a first glance, or maybe you can use this for students to just help them find examples of how words are used in corpora of different authors from different sites. Okay. So these were the central services. Now we are moving to services that are developed by particular CLARIN centers. And this one particular service is something that I really try to promote in our community. It's called WebAnno, and it's a tool that lets you manually annotate your corpus. So when you're doing your research, you need to look for phenomena. And if you highlight with yellow in Word, you can then not do any quantitative or automatic counting analysis, share information. Other people cannot reuse your highlighting from Word and so on. So it's much better to annotate in a consistent way through this tool. And this tool is good because it also offers an option for collaborative projects. So you can set it up and have all your students annotate the same project. And you can monitor their work and even act as a referee. When two students disagree on the same annotation, you can decide who is correct. So why annotate? I would like to try and motivate you who came to this seminar that this is a valuable investment if you're doing linguistic analysis, because you can see your phenomena in context, and you can better interpret your results. You can do much better quantitative analysis, and you can do theory validation or validation of research questions, but you can also get better feedback on the problematic cases when you actually do manual annotation consistently. A second useful thing is that once you've done your manual annotation for research purposes, other people can take your annotations and can train annotation tools based on your data sets. So you invested a lot of time, and it will not be a one-off use, but other people can benefit from your annotations as well. It also has practical benefits, because then you can search for specific categories that you used in your annotations. You can easily find examples for your research papers that you can copy in your materials, and you can ensure that the annotations have long-term usability. This is what I wanted to show for the collaborative approach. You had several students going through the same text, and you asked them to annotate, for example, named entities. And here you are acting as a referee, and you can see very quickly which of the sentences have disagreements across students, and you can very quickly identify what is differently annotated and decide which one is correct. A very exciting tool. Okay, let's move on from manual annotation to automatic annotation. I will not say much about this, because you will see this in practice and try it out, but there are tools that can automatically pre-process annotate your data. Sometimes you will not be satisfied with the resources that we have available, and you will want to annotate your own material automatically. WebLicht makes it possible, not for all languages, for German, English, and a couple others, to annotate your data without knowing how to install or configure the tools. Many other languages have other services of a similar type, and if you're interested, you can check them out on the website. And the third central service that we offer is how to combine some of the resources that you have located in the CLARIN infrastructure, some of the tools that you have located in the CLARIN infrastructure, combine the two and get some output. For example, you have identified this book through the Virtual Language Observatory. You have seen that you're allowed to use it, that it is also available as a text document, so OCR has been performed. A huge job has been done for you already. So you can take the text, and then you can click here on this magic button. It says Process with Language Resource Switchboard, and it will automatically identify, based on the language the text is in, all the pre-processing tools that are available for that particular language. And then you can choose what pre-processing, what annotations you're interested in. Just select it, and then the text is loaded to a server annotated with this tool without you having to know how it works. And then you just get an output that is in vertical format, readily available for you to load into a concordancer tool. So that's kind of wow. Okay. This was hard to achieve, and I'm very excited and proud that we have this going. Okay, beyond resources and tools, the infrastructure is super valuable and important because it also is building a community. We can do better jobs if we know each other and we can help each other out. So I want to show you what efforts we make in trying to build a community and get you involved. We're doing a tour of CLARIN. Every 2 months we go to another countries virtually, where we meet the consortium so that we can see who is behind the CLARIN consortium there. We try and check out their most impressive resources. that they present so that we can learn about them. We can also find out which tool they are most proud of, and they show it to us with a blog post. And also they share their experience with user involvement events like this one, so that anyone who's interested in trying to do a similar thing can copy their successful model to their local situation. And last but not least, we meet with a successful researcher from their community who has successfully used the infrastructure for their research and has had publications or awards or something like that. And they talk about how they learned about CLARIN, how they got involved, what problems CLARIN solved for them, what it is that they would advise CLARIN to focus on next, and so on. We try and record all our events. We are doing the same today, and then we post all the videos with slides synchronized on the video lectures portal, so that people who are not able to make it today, or because the event is full and we couldn't invite everyone, they can still watch it after the event is over. So if you need to see the videos from this workshop or from some previous workshops, you can go to the video lectures portal and learn by yourself at home. We also welcome researchers who are participating our events or are using our tools and resources to share their thoughts and experience with blog posts, and you can read them all. They are all collected. And this is even more exciting. We're collecting showcases, reports from people and teams who have used the CLARIN resources and tools for real-life research. And they share their research scenarios and solutions, which tools they found useful, and so on. So if you would like to be inspired by what is possible with the CLARIN infrastructure, you can take a look here. If you would like to be better involved and better informed, you can click on the introductory pages, but you can also get in touch. We have collected all the contact points from national CLARIN consortia, so that you can have a picture, an email link, and you can ask your local national user involvement representative if you have any questions. If you would like to be more involved actively, you can always try and apply for funding from CLARIN. For example, individual researchers can visit an expert or a center within the CLARIN network and can apply for a mobility grant to do that. So you need to either be interested in a tool or a resource, or you need to be interested in how to deposit your own tool and resource. For this, you can apply for a mobility grant. If you would like to do a similar user involvement event like this one, you can also apply for funding. We have a call out for 2018. And if you would like to contribute to the infrastructure by building a new kind of resource or tool, you can apply for funding for that as well. We are also compiling a registry of courses in digital humanities, social sciences, and NLP that are teaching CLARIN, and you can check them all out on this page here. I just want to show that we are doing quite a lot. This is just 2017. We organized some user involvement events ourselves. We gave quite a lot of funding for other people to organize events last year. We were endorsing some of interesting events, and we were invited to appear to promote CLARIN at quite many events. And this is an image of the activities from national consortia. As you can see, almost all the CLARIN countries were active in trying to provide user involvement events and activities last year. A total of 160 events throughout Europe were organized and attended by over 5,000 participants. You can be one of them in 2018. we're doing quite a lot of user involvement surveys. We would like to learn from you what it is that you expect from CLARIN and are not getting. If you would like to point out anything that's not working, let us know, and we'll try to make sure that we improve that in the future. Okay, and a brief motivation that it's important and easy to deposit your resources through CLARIN. It's free, it's safe, it's very easy to do, but also for all your other fellow researchers, then very easy to find and reuse. If you want to deposit a resource, find your nearest CLARIN center. By nearest, I don't necessarily mean geographically the closest. It can also be the closest in terms of what they focus on, and they will provide you with expertise how to do this. There are 9 steps that you need to follow, so less than trying to stop smoking. It's very easy to do. And I'm sure you will do this hands-on in this seminar, so I will just like to conclude with this motivating statement. Thank you.